Today I'm going to be diving a little bit deeper into this huge life-changing situation that I'm currently going through. So I'm preparing to move to the other side of the world in just shy of 3 months' time. I recently made a few videos about decluttering and downsizing and selling everything I own, but today I wanted to share more about where I'm moving to, my reasons for leaving the UK, what I'm going to be doing and all that kind of good stuff. Hi, welcome or welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Meg, and I recently changed my channel name across all my social media accounts to give a bit of context to the big changes that are happening in my life at the moment. So as I said, I'm preparing to move to the other side of the world on my own in just shy of 3 months' time. It's a very stressful time, but it's also very exciting. So I wanted to go into a bit more detail in today's video about where I'm actually moving to, what I'm going to be doing over there, my reasons, and a bit more about what's been going on in my life lately. Also, I wanted to say, if you do hear some strange background noise throughout the video, unfortunately it's raining heavily here today, and I'm also on a busy road that's under construction, so unfortunately there's nothing I can do about the background noise, but I do hope that you keep watching until the end. So let's jump right into it. So yeah, I'm moving to the other side of the world on my own in just shy of 3 months' time, and I'm going to be living in Thailand. So I'm really excited, but I'm also quite scared naturally. This isn't my first time to Thailand though. I have visited 5 times already in the past. In fact, I recently just got back from a Southeast Asia trip for my birthday 2 months ago. I spent a couple of days in Bangkok and then 2 weeks in Bali and then another couple of days in Bangkok before flying back to London. It was really great to be back there. It was the first time I'd been back in Southeast Asia for 6 years. So a long time had passed, but actually weirdly it felt like home almost immediately. I felt safe and more peaceful and just generally happier. It really is my favourite part of the world. When I planned that birthday trip, I had no intentions whatsoever of moving to Thailand or even living abroad, certainly not within the next couple of years. It was to recharge my batteries and, yeah, like I say, have a break from things that have been going on here in my life in the UK and just, treat myself for my birthday. Unfortunately, a couple of things happened a few weeks before I was due to fly out, which really were the big wake-up call that I needed to finally start putting myself first and finally give myself a better life, basically. So over the last sort of 5-6 years, it's time to call a spade, I've been through a horrific time, and I've been fairly quiet and private and vague about it online. But yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that in this video, but it's been pretty horrific. I've been through some pretty atrocious things over the last couple of years, and a couple of weeks before I was due to go away for my birthday, something in particular happened which really cemented the fact that I need to start putting myself first. And yeah, it's time, long overdue, probably should have happened years ago, but we live and learn, can't go back in time. Now I just have to try and move forward in a way that is healing and more peaceful and safer. So I'm specifically going to be living in Bangkok. Like I said, I've visited Thailand a number of times already in the past, specifically Bangkok, and that's where I'm going to be moving to. Contrary to belief, Thailand is actually quite a developed country. Like, Bangkok is an amazing place. The infrastructure, just everything is, I feel, a lot more developed than actually the UK, which is supposedly a first world developed country. But yeah, it's an amazing, chaotic, but amazing place. I'm not actually a massive fan of huge cities, but Bangkok is just different. I know a lot of people feel the same way about Bangkok. It just has this amazing aura about it. Everything is so convenient and affordable and friendly and readily available, which, for example, if you compared it to London, which is a capital city as well, it's just not the same. And I'll move on to my reasons for moving shortly, but yeah, Bangkok is where I'm specifically going to be moving to. This will be my 6th time in Bangkok, and yeah, I'm really excited. Moving on to my reasons for moving to Thailand. Now, I am going to make a separate video where I go into more detail about all of these, because I do want to try my best to keep my videos short and sweet and a bit more concise. I appreciate that my last video was very long and a lot of you might not have watched it until the end, which I do understand, although I sort of hope that you will, but yeah, I do appreciate that it was quite a long video, so I'm going to do my best to try and keep my videos a bit shorter and a bit more concise, maybe more of an overview in this video and then break down each area in more detail in separate smaller videos. So yeah, my top 5 reasons, really not difficult to name them all off the top of my head, very easy. Cost of living, food, culture, the people and the weather. Yeah, really easy to come up with my top 5. And I'll go into more detail about them in a separate video. So moving on to the actual visa that I'm going to be applying for. Now, like I just said, I'm going to be going into more detail about this visa in a separate video. I also feel like it would be maybe a bit arrogant or presumptuous of me to go into too much detail about it, considering I haven't actually applied for it yet. So the visa I'm going to be applying for is the DTV. It's a very popular visa that's only recently just been introduced in the last year or so, and I know a lot of people are interested in it, so I will definitely make a separate video where I go into more detail about it, hopefully when I actually have the visa. The reason I haven't applied for it yet is because you can only apply for it 3 months in advance. So I'm leaving in mid-March, which means the earliest I can apply for it is mid-December, which is only like 9 days away. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. This month is a really big month. Obviously applying for the visa is a major part of this whole process. Very important, quite stressful. The wait leading up to the day that I can actually put my application in has been quite agonizing, and then there'll be the wait on top of that for the visa to actually be approved. Fingers crossed, so please cross your fingers and toes for me as well. So yeah, I'll go into more detail about the visa. Obviously fingers crossed I actually get it, and so then I think that would be a better time to go into more detail about it. But yeah, it's the DTV, it's a 5-year visa, it's not a permanent visa, it's not a residency visa, it's more considered a long-term tourist visa. So that's what I'm going to be applying for, hopefully down the digital nomad / workation / freelancer / remote worker category. There's 3 different categories, but yeah, the DTV 5-year basically extended tourist visa is what I'm going to be applying for my move to Thailand. So going back slightly to what I was saying about the UK earlier and my reasons in general for leaving. So I'm not going to talk about politics in this video because I want to keep it positive, but yeah, the things that are happening in the UK at the moment and the direction that the UK is going in, I'm finding it very ugly, divisive, extreme. There's a lot of playing on hate going on in politics, which is, I think, very misdirected, and it's just not something I want to be associated or surrounded by anymore. So yeah, I've done a good stretch in the UK and I've sort of tolerated it for as long as I can, and it's time to move on. I know a lot of other people feel very similarly to me about the way that the UK is going and the direction in which it's going, maybe for opposite reasons, but yeah, I know that a lot of people feel similar about the UK. So this isn't my first rodeo, this isn't the first time I've lived abroad. I actually spent the second half of my childhood growing up in a foreign country, and then I left that country and moved to other foreign countries on my own when I left home at the age of 18, and I spent several years living in other foreign countries as well before finally coming back to the UK. So I've spent a 13-year stretch now in England, and it's pretty much got to the point where, yeah, I've done my best, I've tried to make it work, but I just feel like other countries bring out the best in me, not the worst in me, if that makes sense. Also largely due to, unfortunately, as I shared, the situation that I've been in the last couple of years, which has been very traumatic and is going to take a long time to heal from. I feel like now is the time for me to sort of, yeah, make this move. But yeah, I'm not going to go into politics, and like I said, I will share in a separate video in a bit more detail my reasons for moving. But the UK for me personally is just becoming a bit of an ugly place to live in. I will say though, I don't think Thailand is perfect, and I don't think England is the worst country in the world either. You know, politics sort of globally are a bit of a mess at the moment anyway. I also don't think that Thailand is going to solve all of my problems. You know, you don't run away from yourself by moving somewhere different. Like, it doesn't matter whether you move from the north to the south of a country, to a different town, to a whole different continent. It doesn't matter, you take yourself with you. So I'm under no illusions that Thailand is going to solve all of my problems. I'm taking myself with me. But I also feel I've earned the right now to, you know, find a safer, more peaceful environment for me to actually work on myself, to be a better person, to, you know, heal from the things that have just happened. I was of the belief for a very long time that you had to be fully healed and you had to be the best possible version of yourself in order to move on to new pastures. And actually I've realized that's quite faulty thinking, and what happens is that also keeps you in a rut and you miss out on a lot of opportunities. So I am an imperfect, flawed human being, you know, like most people are. I still have a lot of work to do on myself. You know, I've done things that I regret, but at my core, I know that I'm a good person. You know, people that have known me for a very long time throughout my life have always said the same thing. You know, I've got a good heart, I'm generous, I'm incredibly caring, I put a lot of effort into relationships, people, everything that I do, and my heart and my head is in the right place. Obviously, you know, the last couple of years have proven very challenging, so there's certain reactions and behaviours of my own that I'm not proud of, but I've, you know, been in, again, need to call a spade, in a very abusive situation for many years now, which I've finally been able to walk away from, but most importantly to stay away from. So also, I will say I'm not interested in revenge. You know, I'm not moving to Thailand to run away from myself. I'm not interested in naming the person or, you know, shouting from the rooftops or, you know, acting like a victim or playing the victim. I don't consider myself a victim, even though every medical professional, police officer and a hospital member of staff have said to me, you are a victim of abuse. You are the person who is now sitting in a hospital bed yet again, being treated yet again for serious injuries. However, I still, despite all of that, still don't see myself as a victim. I'm not moving to Thailand to run away from my problems. And you know, I also appreciate that the UK has its benefits, but just overall, like adding all of that into the picture, the fact that I've lived abroad before, the fact that I've given this a good go, you know, like I said, I'm not interested in revenge. I have a lot still within myself to work on. I'm fully aware of, you know, the things that I have done and the things that I bring into a relationship as well. But this concept of having to be fully healed and the best possible version of yourself before you move on to new things is just rubbish. Like I've thought that for years, and actually it's not a good way to look at things because it holds you back from a lot of opportunities. So yeah, I'm creating an environment for myself that's more safe and more peaceful for me to work on myself in and to heal from the things that have just happened, basically. So yeah, the UK is becoming a divisive, quite ugly, extreme place to live. I don't like what's happening. I don't like what's going on. The racism that's going on in this country is ugly, and it's often very, very misdirected, if I'm honest. So there's that, and then there's also what I've just been through over the last sort of 5-6 years, which has been, yeah, I've earned the right to use the word horrific. Yeah. And I mean, I earned that right, you know, like 5 years ago, but anyway. And also, yeah, the fact that I just generally feel happier in Southeast Asia. Thailand just brings out the best in me. I'm hoping that it's going to be a good place for me to, like I say, work on myself, build this new online teaching career that I've started sort of investing in. And yeah, again, it's not a permanent or, you know, a residency situation, but it's got to be better than what the last couple of years have been. In fact, just in the last 2 months, I feel healthier and more at peace and calmer and less on edge, and just generally overall better in the last couple of months than I've felt in the last sort of 6 years. So that's really testament to how, you know, removing yourself from certain situations and certain people, even though it's been very, very difficult to stay away, it's testament to how much that can help you. And then just how that then creates a better environment for you to do your healing in. Also, another thing that I have learned is to not allow anybody to tell me what I should or shouldn't need to heal from. There is a word for that, but you know, I'm personally not interested in throwing buzzwords around for effect. So yeah, I'll let you figure that one out. But yeah, I'm not going to be told what I should or shouldn't need to heal from, especially when it comes from the person who's ironically caused you the most hurt, yeah, that's not a cool thing to do. So I'm going to be deciding where I need to heal, the best place for me to be able to do that, what it is I need to heal from. What I've just been through is horrific. So yeah, not allowing people to tell me what I should or shouldn't need to heal from, particularly the people who've hurt me the most, ironically. So that's a big one. Another big one is, you know, during this whole process of not just decluttering my home, it's also psychologically helping me as well to let go and leave behind things that were not good for me. Also not taking on other people's problems anymore, you know, not absorbing other people's behaviors and, you know, taking responsibility for things that are not my responsibility. My behaviors and my choice of actions are my responsibility. Other people's choices and behaviors and actions are not my responsibility. And I, yeah, needs to stop taking responsibility for other people's behaviour, stop absorbing other people's problems and behaviour. I think the sort of very telling point for me recently, over the last sort of 18 months, I'd started to, I'd say, engage with people who I wouldn't usually have engaged with. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, I just mean that I maybe started to get involved in things that I wouldn't have ever usually gotten involved with, or putting myself in situations which maybe weren't overly safe. And that was really the turning point for me, when I realised that I was not coping with the personal situation that I was going through behind closed doors. I'm not saying that, you know, those people were bad people, but they were just sort of acquaintances that I wouldn't usually have aligned with. And that's when I really realised I'm just not coping with what is going on in my personal life. And yeah, I've always been a very sociable person. Before, you know, the last 6 years happened, I was always very sociable. I have no problem making conversations with strangers and getting to know people. You know, chatting to strangers is a completely normal, you know, natural thing to do. It shouldn't be seen as a negative thing. In fact, if I wasn't good at that, I would have really struggled when I lived abroad in the past. If I didn't make friends with strangers and, you know, strike up conversations with people that I didn't know, then, you know, I would never have succeeded when I lived abroad. So yeah, but I think the turning point over the last couple of 18 months, I mean, it's been ages, like it was last year when these sorts of things were happening, but I was maybe engaging with people that I wouldn't usually engage with, and maybe putting myself in situations that I would never usually get involved with, or, you know, put myself in. And that's okay, that's what I did at the time to cope, you know, talking to strangers and striking up conversations with people sat at the table next to you, and then, you know, maybe going dancing with people and then taking yourself home on your own at the end of the night. You know, it's not a crime. Yeah, it's not a crime. I mean, the double standards in society are dreadful, but it's not a crime to do that. And I was obviously very lonely and really struggling. It only happened maybe like a handful of times, but I think I really, looking back on that now, I realised like that was my sign that I wasn't coping with what was going on in my personal life. So yeah, that's all behind me now. You know, I made some acquaintances that were not bad people, but yeah, I probably wouldn't usually have engaged with those people, and they didn't really align with me. I'm perfectly capable of having deep, meaningful friendships. I have done my whole adult life. You know, I've lived in multiple countries on my own where I've made friends quite easily. So yeah, I really need to focus on getting back to being that person. The last couple of years have really wiped the spark out of me, to put it mildly. So there's a lot of rebuilding, particularly of my confidence, that needs to happen. And I will say I have absolutely no interest in dating or being intimate with anybody else for a very long time. Yeah, I'm not going to be burdening the next person with my baggage because I haven't taken the time to process one relationship before I move into another one. I've had that done to me, and it's had long-lasting negative effects on my confidence in particular. It's not in my nature, you know, I'm not avoidant by nature. I've had relationships in the past where I have taken time, you know, in between to sit with myself and burdening the next person with your baggage because you can't sit with yourself is a very cruel thing to do to somebody. I've had it done to me, and you know, it's certainly not something I'm going to be doing in Thailand, you know, certainly not within the next couple of years. I'm not interested in being intimately or, you know, emotionally involved with anybody in a relationship capacity. I want to make new friends and connections with deep, meaningful, you know, down to earth, kind people. But yeah, in terms of my love life, that's very much not a priority at the moment. So yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I'm moving to Bangkok, briefly shared my reasons why, briefly tried to not rant about the UK, and yeah, a little bit about my personal life. That's as much as I really want to go into detail about it. So yeah, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the video. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, I'll be going into more detail in future videos about each of the areas that I've covered into today's video. I hope that you enjoyed watching this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I really, really appreciate your support. As I mentioned in my last video, I recently signed up to a couple of Buy Me a Coffee websites. I've put the links in the description, and they're also on my homepage as well. I've only just discovered that those websites existed, but I've got links for them now on my channel if you did want to go and give me that little bit extra support. I'd be super, super grateful, but of course you don't have to, just letting you know that they're there. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and the notification bell to make sure that you stay tuned on my upcoming videos, where I'll go into more detail about the visa, the application process, my reasons more specifically for moving to Thailand, and all that kind of good stuff. In the meantime, take care and stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.